I don't think you want to dress like an elf, for crying out loud. You know, wear tights and walk around and think that's acceptable. But yeah, it's definitely important to dress professional and present yourself professionally. To walk through the office and like give those compliments that he was giving to those people, that's great. But it's got to come off genuine, and I think for him, it does come off genuine. But it can come off very cheesy, too.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartman. We thought it was only appropriate to review one of the greatest leadership movies of all time. And of course, no, I'm not talking about Godfather 1 or 2. Don't even mention Godfather 3. It's terrible. I'm talking about Elf. That's right. We're talking about Buddy the Elf, Walter Hobbs, Michael, Jovi, the whole cast. That's what we're digging into today. And I'm excited to share this episode with two friends, two leaders from the industry. First off is Mr. Matt Potter. He's a sales leader from a Fortune 50 company. And joining him is a man named Brock Lacy, who defies explanation. Initially, we were coming with his title. We came up with the man, the myth, the legend. And we settled on data scientist. 15 years in a related industry. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Look at you guys. You guys saying thank you in unison. That's wonderful. I'm going to start off here with a little bit of a surprise trivia. You guys up for a little surprise trivia?
I'm ready for anything.
It's,
As long as it's not too hard.
well, you guys can combine. Here it is.
Okay.
Very famously, Elf, the leadership film, opens up with a statement about the 3 and only 3 jobs available to an elf. Can you name all 3 positions?
Cobbler.
Cobbler is correct. That was the first one. 1 for 1.
Accountant.
Accountant.
I don't know. I don't remember.
It's cobbler.
Yes.
Cookie maker.
Yes. Very good. Like Keebler in the tree, which is pretty funny.
The tree.
Yes, yes.
On fire.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the third? Oh, the third is being an elf. And Santa's, that's like
Being an elf.
the best
There
one.
it is. Teamwork.
Santa's Workshop. That's exactly what it is.
Very good.
I watched the movie. At least the first 10, 15 minutes.
I think that is literally the first 12 lines of the movie. So you well have it. All right.
Totally is.
Brock, you were relatively worthless on that trivia.
That's true.
However,
things.
Matt, you brought it. If you tripped over the finish line not knowing what the third position was.
It was the obvious one.
It was.
Right? So I was just like, I thought there was a different one.
All right. So we're going to start off. The first clip is this is going to be a montage of sorts featuring, obviously, the main protagonist in this film, Buddy the Elf.
Hey, Walter.
Morning, Jack. Morning, Jack.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Hobbs.
Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah. It's a nice purple dress. It's very purpley.
Francisco.
How's it going, Mr. Hobbs? Francisco, that's fun to say. Francisco. Hi. Do you remember me?
I do. I didn't recognize you.
I know. I'm in work clothes. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks, Deb.
Deb, you have such a pretty face. You should be on a Christmas card.
You just made my day.
All right. Obviously, this film centers around Buddy the Elf and his journey to reconnect with his father and his family. He is, I believe, one of the most likable characters in any film of all time. The only 2 people who do not like him in this film, one is an animal, the raccoon that attacked him, that may or may not have been in Central Park. And the other one was this Miles Finch, who he mistakenly believed was an elf. Now, everyone else loves this guy. So let me ask you this. Brock, I'll start with you. How important is likability in the role of a leader?
You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure that it's as crucial as one might think at the start of it. I think that what is important is it to be likable in in settings, in positions, right? Especially when gaining trust. And I think that's where Buddy comes in really strong. I mean, he's entering a whole new world of humans that he's never been in before. And he was able to gain trust with so many people that as a new setting and new responsibilities for him that he's never had before. And was really showing an immense amount of strength, of personality and of character just to be true to who he is. And I would guess that if he had more opportunities where likability wasn't the top on the list of needs for a situation, he could probably dig into his bag of tricks and characteristics.
Okay.
But I would say likability certainly it's important, but my 2 cents is its place and setting, and I think it's incredibly important when building trust with people around you.
Yeah. Any downsides, Matt, to being likable as a leader?
No, I don't think there's downsides. I mean, I've had a ton of different bosses. I didn't like all of them. I think one of the biggest things, to Brock's point, is trust. And then one of the other big things is respect. You have to respect somebody as a leader to follow them, I think. If you don't respect them, just forget about it. You can have a likable guy and still not respect them, right?
Yeah.
As a leader.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're going to fail as a leader.
Yeah.
Because of that. So trust and respect are 2 of the biggest things. Likability is nice, but it doesn't always have to be there, I don't think.
All right. There are a couple things that I thought Buddy did extremely well. When he comes in the first day that they're forced because they can't leave him at home in what has to be, $1 million apartment in New York. So Walter Hobbs takes him to the office and he says, "Good morning, Sarah. That's a nice purple dress. It's very purpley." And then he meets Francisco. It's nice to say Francisco. However, I think this is subtle, but it's really important. People really like hearing their own name. And I don't know how much he was doing this deliberately, but also, and then he tells the secretary that she has a beautiful face. It should be on a Christmas card. And I think there are those compliments. They come across as very authentic.
Yeah.
That I think are important. And I think sometimes kind of we forget that. And leaders, we get busy and we move around and we're directing traffic and we're bossing people. When slowing down a little bit to see what people are wearing and what they're doing with their hair, I think those little things matter.
Agreed. I think what comes out to me with Buddy is that he grew up, again, in an environment totally apart from humans. And so he had this chance to really develop his own self-awareness. And so when he came into this culture that's totally unique from what he grew up in, he could still be true to who he is and really lean into his values as a person, not worried about what other people think. So he can compliment people. He can bring out the best in them. He can remember their names and have moments with them that people are going to remember because he has self-awareness. He understands who he is and he hasn't been like burdened by all of, times can be a toxic culture. He's got this elfish ability to understand who he is and not be afraid of burdening people with who he is and what he's bringing to the world.
Well, at one point, Walter Hobbs asks him directly to get rid of the tights. That would really make him happy. And he didn't, right? And it's interesting. I hadn't truly thought about that angle of it, Brock, but to know that this is who he is and he's extremely comfortable standing out and owning every bit of that, including the tights and the full outfit. Matt,
The tights.
as you're thinking about things from a sales perspective, how important is it that the way that you dress? Because Buddy, you could argue, is successful despite his attire. I know we could make this an entire episode on kind of how you dress. And the phrase that I heard early on, maybe when I was not dressed very well on the job, was you want to dress for the job that you aspire to. I don't know. How important is that?
I think it's important. I don't think you want to dress like an elf, for crying out loud, wear tights and walk around and think that's acceptable. But yeah, it's definitely important to dress professional and present yourself professionally. To walk through the office and give those compliments that he was giving to those people, that's great. But it's got to come off genuine. And I think for him, it does come off genuine.
Right.
But it can come off very cheesy too.
Yeah.
Right. And this day and age, you tell somebody they're pretty, they should be on a Christmas card, you might go to jail. Or might lose your job. So,
That's That's a good point.
2003, right?
I think if Walter Hobbs goes through and says that, and you're like, oh, you look pretty today.
Yeah.
Did something different with your hair?
Right.
You should be on a Christmas card. Right. That could be a lawsuit.
Yeah,
anyway.
it could be a lawsuit. That.
It could.
But, and maybe I just totally went off our subject, but I think he's very genuine. He comes off very genuine, and he's okay.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. He gains the trust of people right away where he can really dive into them. But just being who he is.
Yes. Well, and I thought of this too, as construction industry in general and other industries. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressures. Now, the last, 2 years, you could argue maybe more than most. I often think of this quote that a former boss mentioned to me, and he said, "Fun ain't free and it never goes on sale." And kind of that work hard, play hard, and you can still do great things, but you got to find some ways to make it fun. And I think to your point, Brock, when he goes to shipping in the bowels of the office building, he makes friends immediately. He didn't do it in the prison, although we only saw him in the prison very briefly, and he was very cowed in the corner. But like wherever he goes, right, he's bringing just a little bit of fun, unless you're Miles Finch. So I don't know. You're a data scientist.
Sure.
If I didn't know you otherwise, I would just assume in the data science world, things are incredibly boring. Are there ways, how important is it to bring a little bit of fun? Or are there ways to do that even in analytics?
Yeah, certainly there is. As an aside, data science, a big part of it is communication and interpretation. You're bringing complex ideas, complex ways of analyzing data, and it can be very confusing to folks. And so being able to communicate clearly what the models are doing and being able to help people apply them is job one. So it's crucial to be able to communicate. And I think if you can grab people with being fun and just being yourself, you're going to win more often than not. Even if, your model is some kind of crazy machine learning algorithm that folks have already got him.
He's impressed already.
Just say algorithm, machine learning. That's right.
You're smart.
It's so important to make that connection with people and being yourself, trying to have fun and making connections, even with things that are related to artificial intelligence, helps you help people actually use what you're creating.
Yeah. Matt, you've seen his business card. It says both machine learning and London School of Economics. So he's trying to impress you right away, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Brock is probably one of the most genuine, nicest people. He totally himself all the time. And especially in this place that we live here, you meet people that are fake all the time. And Brock is one of the most genuine, most likable people besides you, Bradley. But he seriously is. So
you're too kind. Thank you.
This is why we rounded everybody up.
Yeah.
All right. So let's switch over. We're talking about Walter Hobbs. Let's address Walter Hobbs. Now, we're going to throw kind of two clips here together because the transformation, you could argue, of anyone in the film is most dramatic for the character played by Jimmy Caan, he of Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, in the role of Walter Hobbs. So here we're going to show a quick little clip of him at the beginning of the film, quite aggressively, talking about puppies and pigeons, and it's not important to have all the pages in the book. And then we're going to close at what he does and how he exits Greenway Press at the end. So here we go.
Excuse me. I'm here to see a Walter Hobbs. I'm Buddy the Elf.
You look hilarious. Who sent you?
Papa Elf.
Papa Elf?
Mm-hmm. From the North Pole.
From the North Pole?
Yes.
So you really think we should ship him?
No. I think we should take a $30,000 bath so some kid can understand what happened to a puppy and a friggin' pigeon. Ship him. Yeah.
Mr. Hobbs? It's me on the intercom.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think someone sent you a Christmasgram.
Dad!
All right, let's get it over with.
I walked all day and night to find you.
You look like you came from the North Pole.
That's exactly where I came from. Santa must have called you.
Oh, yeah, sure. He just got off the cell phone with me.
He did?
So, go on.
Go on with what?
Well, are you going to sing a song or something, or can I just go back to work?
A song? Yeah. Anything for you, Dad. I'm here with my dad, and we never met, and he wants me to sing him a song. And I was adopted, but you didn't know I was born. So I'm here now. I found you, Daddy. And guess what? I love you. I love you. I love you.
Wow, that was weird. Usually guys just, put my name in the jingle bells or something.
It's me, your son. Susan Wells had me, and she didn't tell you. But now I'm here. It's me, Buddy.
Susan Wells. You said Susan Wells?
Yes.
Who sent this Christmas-gram?
What's a Christmas-gram? I want one.
I think we should call security.
Good idea.
I like to whisper, too. It's okay, Walter's my father.
Well, your dad's busy right now.
Okay, I'll come back later.
We're gonna have to reschedule this, Mr. Greenway.
We don't have time to reschedule. I want to hear the damn thing now. Son, you'll have to wait.
Don't tell my kid what to do. Can't we do this another time, Mr. Greenway?
I flew in just to hear this pitch, and I intend to.
It's gonna have to wait.
If you want to keep your job, Hobbs, you will pitch me this book right now.
Up yours.
Yeah, up yours.
Hobbs! Hobbs! Hobbs, you walk out of here, and you're finished at Greenway. You're finished.
All right, Brock. Walter Hobbs. How do you feel about him as a character, as a leader during his transformation in the movie?
He is incredibly hard to root for.
Okay.
He is the antithesis of Buddy the elf. And if by design, it's brilliant because you see the juxtaposition between Buddy and Walter Hobbs. But I personally, even after the transformation, I find it difficult to root for him.
Okay. Matt.
I think Walter Hobbs has some good qualities. One of them, obviously, being his patience, the patience he has. Because here comes an elf, a human-sized elf, coming in singing a song about how he's his dad. And he's, he gets him kicked out initially. Then he brings him home.
Right.
And gives him a room.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have dealt with that. I'd have been like, go back to the North Pole or wherever you came from.
That's true, Matt. However, an elf shows up and he was playing, rather innocently, but was playing the Susan Wells card, the girlfriend from high school that you impregnated but didn't know about card. There is some risk out there. So I think this wasn't totally pure of heart, but I agree with you. It's probably not discussed enough that he does exercise quite a bit of patience with Buddy.
Yeah, I think he really does. Patience, restraint. I mean, he's got all this going on at the end of the year with the books, everything else with his job, and he's willing to take this crazy elf man and deal with him and deal with the situation. No matter what risk is out there, I guess. There is a certain amount of risk, but.
Yeah. So Mr. Brock Lacy, Walter Hobbs.
Yeah.
His transformation, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, it's interesting in the end. I think he discovers his true value in his family orientation. It seems to be that he feels as if he has neglected his family, and it all came to a realization at that point. He had done everything he could with Greenway. He had put together something he thought was compelling in a short amount of time. But then he had a moment where he realized he needed to be with his family and his family needed him. And that takes true leadership to cast aside security for insecurity and to be able to take care of your family like he intended to do.
Well, I was recently talking to a friend who has been very successful. She's done extremely well in her career. Call her mid-40s, and she's going on a new venture, and she's cashing her 401k, and she's going to try to live out her dreams. And we were having this conversation. This is going to give her more time to be closer with her family. Her husband's going to be part of the new venture. And I said, the reality is for people, I would say like us, for this individual, for Walter Hobbs, how far do you think you're going to fall? Like him quitting, I don't think is that big of a risk. He can get a job someplace else, right?
Yeah,
so choosing family first over the commitments here, while I think it was probably hard for Walter Hobbs, I don't think it should be nearly as hard for most of us, including him in that position. But Matt, you had a different perspective on this. You had a different take. Dare I say it was a hot take?
Well, no, I said Walter Hobbs had been failing over and over all year. He shipped out a book with missing pages, right? So they were going to come in on Christmas Eve, make it as uncomfortable as possible,
right,
and give him a little amount of time to try and turn this thing around, knowing that he would not be able to do it, and pretty much put him in a position where they were going to move him out, regardless.
So you thought this entire thing was a setup?
I thought it was a setup. I mean, who sets up a meeting at 7:00 at night on Christmas Eve, right?
Santa does.
In New York, huh?
Santa does.
Santa does.
Yeah.
But those are kids overseas still, right? Time difference.
Let's not overthink this. Interesting point, though. I hadn't considered that. Here's what I would say, that Mr. Greenway, Gary, if you know him as well as I do, Gary Greenway, I also think was holding Walter Hobbs accountable. After all, he achieved a -8 last quarter. He shipped a book that was missing 2 pages. And by the way, I don't know about Matt, but I know Brock and I, we read lots of children's books. It's really frustrating if you don't see those pages in there, pigeon, puppy, etc.
Yeah.
I think he was holding him accountable, and if that was on Christmas Eve, all the better.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to say, Bradley. He was holding him accountable, right? He was holding him accountable. He was bringing him in, and he was finding a way to make it uncomfortable and let him move on. I think in my head, that
makes sense.
That's what I'm thinking. So you think the accountability part never? Yeah, I totally agree with that.
It may have been Greenway's way of giving himself a Christmas present.
That's interesting. Giving him a little up or out, right?
Yeah.
You're either going to buck up and totally commit, or you're going to opt out. And either way,
yeah.
And I feel great.
And Greenway seemed like the type of leader that would enjoy watching his, the guy squirm a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah, push him out the door.
I also think there was some other secondary reason that Greenway wanted to be in New York City on Christmas Eve. He was flying in from some other place that he wanted to be there. Maybe he was meeting some other people. I don't know. I don't think we need to go.
I watch enough of Hallmark movies to know New York, Christmas time. It's where you want to be.
I hear you. All right.
God, I believe that.
All right. We're going to transition to, there's back-to-back scenes here that involve Gimbels. When Buddy gets involved, there's a manager. So we're going to play a little bit of an extended segment here. Both of these are absolutely classic scenes. And then we'll circle back to discuss. He's actually nameless, although he's wearing a name tag that says Wanda. That is not his real name. Fun fact there. I'll explain. A little teaser. I'll explain after the clip.
Why were you here so early?
They shut my water off. What were you doing here so early?
Building this?
You built this?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of pissed about this.
Really?
Hey, guys. Have you seen the place?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. It's a little too good. Corporate must have sent in a professional. I don't know why somebody's gunning for my job. But look, let's remain a team, okay? Because if I go, we all go. If you get wind of anything, call me on my radio. Channel 3. Code word is Santa's got a brand new bag, okay? 6-inch ribbon curls, honey.
That's impossible.
6 inches.
You're a big boy. What's your name?
Paul.
And what can I
Paul.
get you for Christmas?
Don't tell him what you want. He's a liar.
Let the kid talk.
You disgust me. How can you live with yourself?
Just cool it, Zippy.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Look, I'm not kidding.
You're a fake.
I'm a fake?
Yes.
How'd you like to be dead? Huh? No, he's kidding.
You stink.
I think you're gonna have a good Christmas, all
You
right?
smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa.
Okay, good.
Oh! He's an imposter!
All right. So the fun fact that I learned from watching on Netflix, there's a series called The Movies That Made Us. And it's kind of a behind the scenes show from your favorite movies, including Elf. So the reason that he doesn't have a name, his name is just Gimbal Manager. However, he's wearing a Wanda name tag because Wanda Sykes, the African-American comedian, was going to play that role up until the very last moment. So they had the name tag and everything. And then she bailed. This guy comes in. He's like, well, I'm still wearing it. So if you look closely, it says Wanda on it. But anyway, I thought it was funny and had me thinking when he says, it's pretty good. It's a little too good. Corporate must have sent in a professional. I don't know why somebody's gunning for my job, but look, let's remain a team. Brock, it had me thinking about this phrase. Top performers always want to surround themselves with more talent to help them go farther, faster.
Yeah.
Generally, more towards middle management and lower management, there is this fear that someone else is going to come in and make me look bad. As a leader, are there ways that you can coach either younger managers or folks that are maybe lower in the hierarchy to help them kind of change their perspective on that?
Yeah. So I think really it comes down to your philosophy as a leader. If you see something like this as either a threat, like the Gimbel manager number 1 did, or as an opportunity. Because if he saw it as an opportunity, it could have been, man, this is great.
Right.
If an exec comes in and sees this, I'm going to get all the credit.
Right.
Or my people will, which looks good on me too.
Yeah.
He saw it as a threat. And I think you have to ask yourself as a leader, do you see talent around you as a threat or an opportunity? And if you see it as a threat, you need to re-examine yourself. I personally, when I'm in leadership positions, I like to think of myself as opportunity. Everything's opportunity. There are real threats, of course, but your people, for the most part, if they're talented, you better put a spotlight on them and know and feel comfortable with yourself enough to know that if their profile rises, your profile will rise too.
Yeah.
So it's all threats and opportunities. How tough can you be? Are you mentally tough enough to see that as an opportunity or as a threat?
That's well said. Matt, have you ever worked with someone who did a really good job of that as a leader, who passed on all the accolades and all the credit to you or other people that that reported him or her?
No.
Next question.
I'm joking. I'm totally joking. I have. I've worked with people like that, and I mean, it's great. It's a great thing to be mentored by somebody that's like that, because I try and be like that. I try and tell the guys that are coming up below me or that I manage, like, be better than me. Like, I hope you can. Let's, we need to work together to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're better than me, that's great. Let's give you those opportunities. Let's make sure people know about those opportunities.
Yeah.
The one thing manager one did wrong, I think, was automatically assuming it was big corporate that came in and did it all, instead of rounding his team up and talking to his team.
Yeah.
And then he could have found out who did it.
Yeah.
And then they could have figured out how to make it a positive. Instead, he was like, here's the code word. Call me on the if you see somebody come in.
Santa's got a brand new bag.
Santa's got a brand new bag. Like, I mean, take some time to pull your team together and figure out who did this awesome thing and made the department store look so well. And then you guys can all benefit from that if corporate execs do come in.
Right.
And then, obviously it's going to drive more sales and everything else.
Well, I thought that scene was bookended so well from a managerial perspective, because on one, he says, corporate sent somebody in, let's be a team, cover me, right? And then leaving, what does he tell Jovi? He says, 6-inch ribbons. She's cutting the ribbons. And she says, 6-inch ribbons curls, honey. And she says, that's impossible. And he goes, 6 inches, right? So on one hand, he's so far removed and is not even thinking, how did this happen? Is it possible that anyone in my midst has done this?
Right.
You also have like this crazy elf who showed up out of nowhere, and like coincidences happen. However, let's dig a little bit deeper. And then he leaves with this absurd micromanagement. I just thought it was a wonderful little segue.
But don't you think the micromanaging comes from a place of insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, as he's walking away, he feels like he needs to do something in case big corporate does come in. Like, make sure he's locking the most smallest minute details down.
Yeah.
Before, and we can go into micromanaging all day.
Yeah, I had a manager named Ed Dowdy. Ed Dowdy was the greatest boss and mentor that I had very early on in my career. And I want to say to a fault, because it wasn't a fault, but if anything bad happened, he would raise his hand and say, that was on me, my fault. And then we'd look at him and we're like, obviously you didn't do that, we did. If anything good happened, he would say, it was you guys, and it would pass, and he would do this in public settings. We knew he did it in private. And it got to the point that leadership knew when he raised his hand and says, my fault, I'm sorry, I screwed up. They would like look at each other and be like, well, that's not true. And then when he would give credit to everyone else, they would say, okay, and he just became a model for me that was take all the blame, dish all the credit, and just did this incredibly consistently, unsurprisingly. Well, here I am, almost 20 years later, talking about everybody wanted to work for the guy, and they were incredibly successful.
Yeah, no, I think what Ed Dowdy did, and what I think a great leader does, is protect their people. Mm-hmm. Certainly holds them accountable, right? That's important. We talked about that already. But protects his people or her people and provides them a psychologically safe zone, right, where they can take on bigger problems, solutions, have room to fail even. And if a leader can do that and raise their hand and say, I'm to blame. Oh no, I didn't, that thing that went great, that was my guy over here. And we got to look at him and give him more opportunities. Yeah. And what that does is, without realizing that you're building your own strength as a leader and that people see you as a leader, but also it makes you stronger as a person, that you can take on those, that you're big enough to absorb all the problems and find solutions and raise people. It only makes you stronger as a leader to be able to take those arrows and protect your people.
Yeah, and I also think there's something that happens very dynamically if I see you doing that, Brock, and like every time Brock gets up in front of a group of 100 people, he starts talking about his people. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm up next. I never do that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're thinking, well, why don't I? Maybe I should do that. And all of a sudden, right now, I think there's an element of that being contagious.
Yeah.
That you are modeling that, hey, this is how we do it. And listen, blaming the people that report to you, that doesn't help the leaders who are above you, and it sure as hell doesn't help the people below you. So, all right, how is that helping us as an organization? I think it's a powerful way to kind of view that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Matt, we're going to switch directions here just a little bit. The second half of this clip is when Santa Claus comes in, and Buddy quickly identifies that this isn't the real Santa. He says, and I quote, "You smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa. You sit on a throne of lies." This brings up something that we've been dealing recently with a client, is when you have people on your team that are thoroughly entrenched, and some people think, hey, they're really good. Some people think they are absolute all-stars. And yet, the truth is, they are imposters, and they're very good at reading the room. They're very good at ingratiating themselves with leadership. But the reality is, people really know who are there, the boots on the ground, know that this individual is a fake and they shouldn't be part of the team. As a leader or as a manager, what's your responsibility to do when you find out someone like this on your team? It's not easy.
No, that's a hard question, Bradley, to come off.
That's why I asked you.
I have somebody in my organization like this right now, and it is...
What's his name?
We're not saying names.
I'm joking.
We're not saying names.
Carry on.
Let's call him David.
Okay.
Which might be his real name, maybe not. But I mean, it's so hard as a manager. You know what this person is doing, but then you have to play the political game, the internal game, because he's endeared himself to upper management,
the right people,
right people.
Sure.
You could say his numbers aren't exactly what he says they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, all you can really do is empower the people around him that are coming up that you trust, and tell them they have to keep doing the right things and keep working hard.
Yeah.
And eventually that person will be found out and it'll weed itself out. Yeah, it's just a very tough situation. We're going through that right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up a point that I hadn't thought about is if people are looking up to this person, and Brock, to use your phrase that I love, is, people are putting a spotlight on this individual. By definition, they will be modeling the behavior of what success looks like in an organization.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm reading your body language, that may or may not be true with what you're describing here, but that's possible. And all of a sudden, this happens all the time.
Yep.
Where all of a sudden, hey, this person's doing A, B, and C, and we kind of know what's happening behind the scenes, and look at what's happening to him.
Right.
New promotion, new title, more money. Hey, everyone's doing this, and you have to say, listen, do the right thing, keep your head down, keep working hard. How do you handle that, Brock?
It's hard. It's funny. I hope you don't mind me steering in a different way. But one of the things that I think about with this is actually imposter syndrome, right? So this Santa, who's not the real Santa, he's one of Santa's helpers.
Correct.
If you're listening in, Essie, he's Santa's helper, right? And he's doing his best job, but he's an imposter. And Buddy, he smells him out, right? He knows right away he's an imposter, and he calls him on it. And people who are early in their careers and their development, they feel that already, right? And so a bad manager is going to call them out for being an imposter, and is going to prevent them developing into the real Santa. Right. And so I think what a good manager could do is help the Santa's helpers along the way as they fake it till they make it, right? And not be so quick to pull off that mask, that beard, but to empower them to grow and develop into this. So I don't really have a great answer to your first question, but in that tact, if we think about it with imposter syndrome, which I think we all have at different phases of our career, that we as leaders, we can turn to people and help them and realize that yeah, you do fake it till you make it. You can develop. We're going to help you, give you the space in the room, the training to make it in as going from Santa's helper to the real Santa.
Yeah.
I love you, Essie.
Thinking about the fact that while maybe some of the behavior of this individual and the way this person is reacting and the way they speak and the way they present themselves might be one way, as a manager, as a leader, I might be wise for me to look at them and think, deep down, or maybe not even deep down, right below the surface might be this feeling that at any moment, someone's going to say, you smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa. I'm pulling off the mask. And that's a real fear that, I mean, on this podcast, we've talked about it multiple times. CEOs, we had one woman, she was amazing. And she got crowned by, you're not knighted in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain.
You're a dame.
You're a dame, right? Yeah. Okay. And she talked about, she still has this imposter syndrome after running several large organizations, leading an IPO, being recognized by the British government. And she still kind of feels, for whatever reason, that she's not good enough or she's an imposter. And that is just vicious.
But that's completely different from obviously the real situation that you're talking about, Matt. I guess that's one way to think about it, right? Is if someone's genuinely trying, right? And like they're making up their numbers, and you unmask them and you see where they're really heading. Like, are they at a place where they feel overwhelmed, they're faking it, or if they're just lying and they have no integrity, that's something completely different. But
all right. So here we come to the end of the film, right? We're coming full circle here. I want to focus just a little bit on, and we're not going to run a clip because it would probably be the last 20 minutes of the film. You have Michael, the son.
Yeah.
And you have Jovi, obviously the love interest, played by Brock.
Oh my goodness.
Go on.
Zoe Deschanel.
There you go. All right. I knew you'd come
Property
through.
Brothers fame.
You better hope your wife doesn't hear you say it like that.
There you go. So it was a
Deschanel.
I tried. I knew I was going to French it up. I was worried about the last name. I get the first name, but Deschanel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I have to reach back deep into the genetic pool here to see if I have any French. And I think I failed.
You did fine. Don't be too hard on yourself there, kid.
Yeah.
So at the end, I often, as we're talking about leadership, especially with younger people and being involved with a couple universities and their construction management programs at Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Prairie View A&M, when we're around these students, I will often emphasize that leadership isn't something that is far down the road that you should aspire to. It is right in front of your face if you choose to be a leader. And it's by your behavior and by your decisions that you make. And there's no reason that you can't start doing it today, like right now. And I think that's what we see here with Michael. And, he just grabs the book when he runs up to that Charlotte Denon of New York One and says, I know what you want. Charlotte Denon wants a Tiffany engagement ring. And her boyfriend stopped dragging his feet and commit already. I'm going to start with you, Brock, because he did something subtle here. What did he bring to the table in his argument to change her mind? Say it. He brought
Love.
He did bring a little bit of love, I'm sure. He brought data.
Data.
I thought that was
oh
a
my
layup.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Layup, bro.
Oh my goodness.
It's a layup.
Okay, cut, edit.
We will not. We're
Oh
rolling.
no,
All
oh
right.
no.
So
oh,
he
no.
brought data. He brought some information to
Yeah.
support this that she was not anticipating.
Yeah.
But sometimes I will often talk to some younger folks and they'll struggle to say, they're not listening, or we have this new idea, or there's this new innovation, or there's a better way, and they won't listen. And they're screaming from the rooftops with this story that may or may not be effective, but there's very little data. For maybe younger people that are listening that are trying to be more influential, trying to be more persuasive, how do you help them think about how much data to bring to the table and how to be more persuasive with it?
It's all about presentation. It's understanding, obviously, your people you're delivering this to, your audience, and how accepting they are will be of the data. I mean, there's going to be people who you report to who are going to want to see detail, but you need to understand them and you have to develop a relationship with them. I think the ability to manage upward is something that's overlooked in a lot of our discussions. Everything seems to be floating down, but data used from down to up, like Michael's doing here, is very persuasive. You can really encourage cultural change and strategic change with data, but you have to understand your audience. So like for me, for example, the position I am in, our industry, which is related to construction management or construction, is really old school. We're trying to become more data savvy as an industry. And I can't tell you how many times I have to water down what I'm explaining, but it makes sense because the attention that an exec will give to what I'm trying to present needs to be minimal. And they don't need to know everything. They need to get the headlines and make sure you don't bury it. But being able overall to manage upward as a young person and be able to use data appropriate to your audience will help you along greatly with that. But you got to understand your audience. I mean, if I'm presenting to someone who has a PhD in economics, for instance, he's going to want to know everything. And I'm happy to talk about it, and we're going to have a long, lengthy discussion. If I'm talking to someone who literally has a minute to understand this statistical model that I'm presenting, that's going to be completely different. But I can get there.
Yeah,
I can present that to him in a way that he'll understand and that he can give me buy-in.
Yeah, and Matt, I think one of the skill sets that you have is, I think you are, based on what I've seen, my observations, you are extremely skillful at reading the room. Is that something that can be taught? Can you teach someone who's, hey, 26, you're going into a board meeting, you got 2 minutes, here's what you're going to have to think about as you do exactly what Brock just described, you're going to have to manage up, and here's the opportunity that you'll have. Can that be taught?
Yeah, I think it can be taught. I mean, talking about what we're talking about here, I think if you have to be willing to put those young people in positions to fail. They're going to have to fail a couple times.
Yeah.
And go through that, watching the room's eyes glaze over and watching people just like, when people just start checking out, they start looking at their phones, they start writing down, they're not writing notes, they're doing other things. It's the elevator speech, right? I talk to my guys all the time, like, hey, give the elevator speech, hit the high notes, get it through, and move on, read the room kind of thing. So,
well, not coincidentally, because obviously I love movies, but the idea of an elevator speech, I'm like, how often are you in an elevator? Although, obviously, there's the great scene where Buddy uses his arms and forearms and elbows to literally touch every light like a Christmas tree there. That poor guy. But this idea, I will often tell young folks, or I'll tell myself, if you got just a narrow amount of time, instead of thinking of an elevator speech, think of a movie trailer, which is, there are people who literally go to the movie theater only to watch the movie trailers.
Yeah.
Why? Well, you're condensing an hour-and-a-half movie down into a minute-and-a-half of just the highlights. And I think there's a simple structure that I kind of refer to and I will teach is, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do?
Yeah.
Like if those things are really clear, here's what I need you to know, and whether it's data or story or whatever, a new product or service or whatever it is, if you're making it super clear, here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to feel, right? There's a problem and we have a solution generally. And then here's what I want you to do as an immediate next step. think you're on your way to, it's not a guarantee that you're not going to screw it up, but at least there's some reasonable boundaries to help to kind of keep you in the middle.
Yeah. No, I love what you said, Matt, and I'm not surprised you said it at all as a leader, knowing you. It's you got to give people the room to learn, and they learn by failing.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what you guys were saying before as a leader. You say it falls on, or I'll say it falls on me as a leader.
Yeah.
And I tell my guys, like, listen, I'm going to stretch you as you're coming up, and you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And I want you to fail.
Yeah.
But as a leader, I will never put you in a position that it's a catastrophic fail.
Right.
Where it's going to end something or it's going to be disastrous or anything like that. I will put you in positions to learn. And if it comes up, that's on me.
Yep.
Like if it comes back from up high, that's on me because I put you in that position. That's
right.
Not you, that's me. So that's the only way people are going to grow. You have to fail. You can't just always be having participation trophies and everything else.
And I love that too, because what it's doing as a leader is, you're certainly putting yourself out there because you're shielding them from criticism. You're taking it, but then it provides you a legacy too. Like these people, selfishly are going to turn to you and remember, hopefully, those moments you gave them to grow. And it makes me think of, and this is a quote that I've been telling my kids a lot lately, but Winston Churchill said once, he said that success is never final. Failure is never fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts.
So let me say this. I gotta jump in here because when I was going to introduce Brock earlier, right?
Yeah.
So Brock and you, Bradley, and my son all play on the same 10U team.
This is true.
Which can be very. My anxiety, it's Texas. My anxiety goes through the roof. Like before games, while they're warming up, I'm like pacing back and forth. So I would always go like huddle up next to Brock, right? And if you ever see Rocky 2, where Rocky goes to the priest and he like yells at the priest like, "Yo, Father Carmine, come out here." And he's like, "Throw me down a prayer. I need some before I go in this fight." And Father Carmine throws him a prayer and it kind of like calms him. So like I would go over to Brock and ask for words of wisdom like Father Carmine, like he just gave.
Yeah.
And it took a couple times to get him out. But he would always calm me down. He's a true leader, a true good guy.
Too kind.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. You guys are extremely busy, personally and professionally. Appreciate you guys making time. I'm going to come out with you 2 final questions here. Mr. Matt Potter, the next film that we should focus on from a leadership perspective is what?
Braveheart with William Wallace.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
A great one.
Oh,
good one.
My wheels are already turning.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Brock Lacy, because I do not trust your taste in film, I will give you a different question. As we close out, final question. Do you have a leadership book or something that has helped you become a better leader that you've read in the last 12 months?
Yeah, my jam lately has been a book called Developing Mental Toughness.
Okay.
It's developed by some psychologists, and just as a quick synopsis into the thesis for it is that mental toughness can be distilled down to 4 factors.
Okay.
It's control, commitment, confidence, and challenge. We talked about one of them today, challenge, threats versus opportunities.
Okay.
Anyway, I highly recommend it. It's a really great book, but it is, like I said, dense.
Developing mental toughness.
Yeah.
Matt, when you get a book recommendation from a data scientist, London School of Economics, Boston University or Boston College?
Go Terriers. No, not Boston
in my mind, they're kind of the same.
They're not the same.
They're not the same.
I'm sorry for anyone who's a Boston College.
I think I just took a nap.
You should. You should.
How many pages is this book?
Oh, you don't want to know.
Like 980
more than that.
Or
I
something?
bet it's one of those books. You pick it up, it's like 500 pages. You're like, this is really big. And then you realize that the footnotes and the appendices is like 280.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, I can get through 300.
We have to go back and read it again too. You're like, that was great.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, it's fantastic.
Jeez, bro.
Developing mental toughness and Braveheart. I know which one I'm more excited to jump into from a leadership aspect.
Me too.
I'll tell you that. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Now, if you are listening and you have identified either A, a leadership book that you would strongly recommend, or B, a leadership movie that you believe that we should break down into its the most important leadership aspects, let us know. And we are going to close out, like we always do, with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.